Hi, I'm Darren and welcome to New Factory Classics. Today we're going to break down Beetlejuice. Adam and Barbara are enjoying a staycation. This time off of work will do them wonders. Adam can finally focus on his miniature replica of the farming community that they live in. And Barbara can focus on her extensive selection of farmers' wives' dresses. The crazy part is at the time these two were considered sex symbols. Their neighbor arrives at their house at 6:45 in the morning. She decided that their house is too large for them and has attempted to sell it on their behalf. I don't know about you, but if somebody arrived at my house at 6:45 on a staycation, you might get shot. Isn't this how people get shot, Adam? But forget that crazy lady. It's time for the couple to go to town and go to the hardware store that they own. They need supplies so he can work on his miniature farming community diorama some more. On their way back home, though, they have to swerve out of the way of hitting a dog and end up driving off of a bridge. What an honestly crappy way to start your staycation. They're all soaked when they walk into the house, but things feel a little bit off, a little bit weird. For one, they have no reflections. Two, they don't remember how they got home. And three, they can set their hand on fire. Though with that outlandish perm that she has, it's quite possible that she never used the mirror in the first place. They end up finding a guide called the Handbook for the Recently Deceased. They just finally realize that they are dead. The neighbor quickly sells their house. The trick was, of course, is that she listed it before they had died and was working with that neighborhood dog to off them. Yes, a new family is about to move in. Charles, Delia, and their daughter Lydia. Charles just wants a place to relax. Life in New York City is too stressful for him. Delia is a snobbish artist who didn't want to move here in the first place. And Lydia is a goth teenager that finds the whole experience kind of novel. And while she seems like the depressive type, she will grow on you and even steal your heart, as well as $5,000 from Saks Fifth Avenue. Otho is here too. He's like Delia's assistant or something. He's annoyed that they had to move out to this farming community, and he won't stop bitching about it the whole film. He'll go on to voice the mayor in A Nightmare Before Christmas, which isn't much of a change for him because he already looks like the guy. Adam and Barbara attempt to scare the new residents out of their house. Unfortunately, none of the humans can see them. Yes, eternal life is going to be a struggle for Adam and Barbara, especially when their house is filled with a bunch of 80s power yuppies. Infuriated, the newlyweds end up leaving the safety of their home and go to the land of the dead. Which is unfortunate because it's mostly just sand dunes, giant worms, and somewhere out there is the Lisan Al Gaib. The family plans on gutting the house and removing all the furniture and remodeling it as they feel. Though they don't actually know they have ghosts, so it's not as bad as the movie paints it. They just bought a house that 2 people died on and they want to remodel it and make it their own. Remember, we're all going to die someday. Not all of us are going to get lucky to have our house remodeled by Moira Rose. While reading their guide to the dead, an ad comes out for a man named Beetlejuice, a man who will help them remove humans from their house. This should not be confused, of course, with these Beetle guys and this random dude. Young Lydia is the only one who can see the ghosts, and she sees them peering out of the attic. She tries to get in, but they won't let her. Yes, the ghosts are able to hold the door closed. For some reason, they can sometimes touch things, other times they cannot. The rules are not very ironclad in this film. Another commercial plays for this Beetlejuice guy again, though they ignore it and decide to go to the land of the dead, a place where they may run into Gina Davis's current career. While they are out of the attic, Lydia successfully breaks in and finds the miniature diorama of the farming community. If I ran into something like that, I would assume that he drowned them on purpose. Also, she finds the Handbook for the Recently Deceased, meaning that the book exists in the real world and there should be trillions of them laying around. Adam and Barbara end up going back to their house, or what seems like their house, as they were gone for 3 months and the whole place has been remodeled. It looks like a modern art museum. The whole place has been changed. That is, except the attic where they kept that diorama for some sort of ironic purpose. Their caseworker appears and explains to them that they need to get the humans out themselves and not to rely on Beetlejuice, for he is more trouble than he's worth, and maybe they should actually read that manual that they have laying right there. Charles wants his boss to visit the farming town. The whole place is underdeveloped. They could buy it really cheap and turn it into some sort of luxury resort. Pretty much the plot of every movie in the 1980s. Lydia introduces herself and makes friends with the ghosts. Finally, she has someone to talk to because both of her parents ignore her. Yes, while goth people may think they're cool, they actually have very few people to talk to in real life, and most of them wish they could talk to the ghosts of Alec Baldwin. Meanwhile, in real life, he's out there making ghosts. Lydia tries to help the ghost by scaring her parents, letting them know that there are ghosts in the house, but they don't care. They're wanting to throw a dinner party tonight. A party? This is the opposite of what Adam and Barbara were hoping for. It's time to call out the big guns. Beetlejuice! 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 They are immediately summoned into Beetlejuice's lair, and it turns out that he just lives in their diorama. They thought that meeting him would be great, but frankly, he just tries to make out with Barbara and he looks like a disgusting zombie. He's willing to strike a deal and help them get rid of the new inhabitants, but it's very hard to strike a deal when he's constantly grabbing at Barbara's ass. He's constantly feeling her up, looking under her dress and trying to make out with her. He's a really classy dude in general. The two decide to leave. They don't want to make a deal with this guy. If they wanted to make a deal with someone like this, they would have had Harvey Weinstein produce the film. It's time for the big dinner, and all the big yuppies from New York have arrived, and they all want to hear about Lydia's story about ghosts in the house. But before they can begin, they're all possessed by the ghost of Harry Belafonte, which is crazy to think about because he didn't die for another 35 years. Nonetheless, the entire table sings and dances to the song Deo. But instead of leaving, the entire party had an absolute blast. They want to sell the experience of being possessed. It turns out that Barbara and Adam are just too lame of ghosts to actually scare people. Beetlejuice, tired of the slow pace of the haunting, decides to escape and actually scare people himself. He becomes a giant snake and attacks Delia, Charles, and Otho, but becomes infatuated with Lydia. While Michael Keaton may have been 37 at the time and Winona Ryder 17 at the time, the characters they played were 615, so that's okay for some reason. While things are going sideways, Beetlejuice is running amok and in love with Lydia, and the ghost can't seem to scare anyone. Charles, Delia, and Otho are actually so excited they're going to throw another party to show how the possessions work. Yet the scariest thing of the entire experience is that this room is considered complete. Lydia decides to jump off a bridge herself. The loneliness of being a girl all by herself and not having any friends is just too much for her, so she goes up to the attic to say goodbye. Though instead she runs into Beetlejuice, who does his best to convince the miner to release him from his prison. But before she can say his name a third time, the ghosts return and tell her not to release him. They want her to stay alive and they will be her friends. They can all hang out in the attic together. Yes, hanging out in an attic with a bunch of ghosts and a diorama of the city that you live in sounds actually worse than death. Eventually, though, they're all interrupted by her father, who steals the diorama and brings it into the living room. He's using it to help make his pitch on turning the entire farming community into some sort of amusement park. Otho leads a seance in summoning the ghosts of Barbara and Adam back from the dead. They are summoned back to life but start decaying immediately. They look like they're filming a commercial for ABC's The Golden Bachelor. In order to save them from their misery, Lydia strikes a deal with Beetlejuice. She'll release him from his prison, he'll save Adam and Barbara, and then she'll have to marry him. Hey, at least he wants to marry her and not just sleep with her. Beetlejuice wants to look good in the eyes of God. Beetlejuice is released and immediately sends Charles' investing partner right through the roof. Beetlejuice releases Barbara and Adam from their torment and ends up scaring Otho out of the house. Now it's time to marry Lydia. It's so refreshing to have child marriage as a plotline, something that really hasn't existed in movies for about 40 years. That is, other than Ariel, who was 16 when she got married in that movie, but that might be closer to 18 in Fish years. Lydia, Adam, and Barbara all try to re-imprison Beetlejuice before he can marry Lydia. But every time before they say his name a third time, he stops them with his magic. Barbara ends up breaking through the roof and eating Beetlejuice with one of those giant worms, sending him back to the land of the dead. Lydia and her family decide to end up living in harmony with the ghosts. Charles ends up deciding to develop other land. Delia ends up using the inspiration of Beetlejuice to make new sculptures. Lydia finally has parents that are two ghosts, which is still better than being a child bride. Beetlejuice has been defeated and everyone else can live happily ever after. Somebody summon Harry Belafonte so we can all dance. And now I have seen it so you don't have to. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.